So what we know at this moment is that these are the people whose asylum claims were rejected by the US, and the US authorities decided to send them to the third receiving country, which is Rwanda at this particular moment. We also know that some of them are convicted criminals with varying cases, of course. But what we do not know is the magnitude of the cases with which they were convicted on. And that's actually some of the things that have raised concerns here among analysts, or why Rwanda is willing to receive convicted criminals.
My people, after weeks of speculation, it's now official. Rwanda has agreed to take in up to 250 undocumented migrants from the United States. It's part of a new deal quietly brokered with the Trump administration as he pushes forward with one of his most aggressive campaign promises yet, a mass deportation plan targeting undocumented migrants across the country. Under the agreement, Rwanda will provide the deportees with training, healthcare, and accommodation to jumpstart their lives, according to government spokesperson Yolande Makolo. The White House hasn't confirmed the details publicly, but a spokesperson told the BBC that the U.S. is in ongoing talks with countries that are, quote, willing to assist us in removing the illegal aliens that President Joe Biden allowed to infiltrate the country, end quote. Now let's pause right there, because here's what I don't understand. How does one country deport undocumented migrants to a completely different country with no ties to them? On what legal, moral, or diplomatic grounds is this even acceptable, my people? What happened to their country of origin? Once again, Africa is being asked to carry the weight of a broken global system. And once again, African nations are saying yes. The irony? While we're being asked to take in migrants the West doesn't want, African citizens are being asked to pay $15,000 just to visit the US. Can't make this up. We're good enough to absorb their problems, but not welcome in their countries. Today, we're breaking down what this deal really means for the US, for Rwanda, and for the people caught in the middle. Is this a bold act of African compassion, a calculated diplomatic move, or just a dangerous precedent with hidden costs? We're going to break it down, but first, thank you to all of our new subscribers and members. And if you haven't joined us yet, what are you waiting for? Please hit subscribe and tap the alert so you never miss a new release from us. And if you enjoy this episode, don't just scroll past it. Leave a comment, share it with your group chats, and drop a super thanks to support our channel. Also, follow me on my socials at Sandra Babu-Boateng, and let's stay connected, okay? All right, now, let's get into it. So what exactly is in this deal? Rwanda has agreed to accept up to 250 undocumented migrants currently detained in the United States. According to Rwanda's government spokesperson, Yolande Makolo, these individuals will receive workforce training, healthcare, and housing, a package designed to help them restart their lives in Rwanda. But there is a clause. Rwanda reserves the right to approve or reject each person proposed for resettlement. That means this isn't just a blanket transfer. Rwanda will vet each case individually. Sure. Now, the U.S. hasn't said much publicly about this, but it's clear that this isn't an isolated agreement. We know that Eswatini and South Sudan have already accepted deportees, including some with criminal records under similar deals. And in May, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was blunt. The administration was searching for, quote, countries willing to take in some of the most despicable human beings. So let's be clear. This deal isn't being framed as humanitarian. It's being sold to the American public as a security measure, a way to get rid of people the U.S. doesn't want, which makes Rwanda's role interesting, or should I say complicated. Is it stepping in as a savior nation offering second chances because of its own painful history of displacement? Or is it playing the role of strategic ally, trading sanctuary for silent concessions, political favor, or financial compensation? Because while the Rwandan government talks about compassion and reintegration, there are unconfirmed reports that the U.S. may provide Rwanda with an unspecified grant as part of the deal. And if that sounds familiar, well, it should, because back in 2022, Rwanda struck a similar agreement with the UK. That plan was eventually scrapped, but not before the UK sent Rwanda about $310 million. No asylum seekers ever arrived, but Rwanda kept the money, and the housing facilities built, but now unused or repurposed in ways no one has publicly explained. So this raises a deeper question. Are we witnessing a new kind of diplomacy where African nations become brokers in the global migration crisis, accepting people the West wants to disappear in exchange for cash or clout? And if so, at what cost?
Rwanda, in general, has hosts over 100,000 migrants and asylum seekers from different countries, from the neighboring DRC, from Burundi, from as far as Afghanistan and Israel, as well as people who, there was a deal that fell apart, the 2022 deal with the UK. Rwanda has intentionally put itself forward to receive people who are in need of asylum and refugees, because the authorities here believe that Rwandans fully understand the plight and the suffering of the migrants and asylum seekers due to the history of this nation, where most people from as far as 1959 were Rwandans were forced to flee the country and went to different parts of the world. So the current authorities believe that offering such asylum and asylum to those who are in need is sort of offering a pathway to those, decent pathway to those that are in need of asylum and refugee and resettlement.
Now on paper, Rwanda is presenting this deal as an act of moral leadership. Government spokesperson Yolande Makola said Rwanda understands displacement because, quote, nearly every Rwandan family has experienced the hardships of being uprooted. And according to Foreign Affairs Minister Vincent Biruta, Rwanda is led by, quote, the spirit of integration and giving people second chances. Now, it's a powerful narrative, especially for a country still healing from the trauma of genocide in the 1990s. Rwanda is positioning itself as a stable, forward-looking African nation that can step in where others refuse. A small African nation offering dignity, shelter, and hope to the displaced. But if Rwanda is so committed to saving migrants, why not start right here on the continent? Because let's be honest, Africa is already in the middle of its own migration crisis. Right now, thousands of Africans are fleeing poverty, war, and repression, not just to the West, but to the neighboring African countries. Sudanese refugees are pouring into Chad. Eritreans and Somalis are stuck in brutal conditions across the Horn of Africa. Civilians in eastern DRC are constantly on the move, fleeing violence that has persisted for decades. And here's the kicker. Rwanda itself shares a border with the Democratic Republic of Congo, where over 7 million people are internally displaced due to conflict and instability. So if the goal is to help the displaced, why not welcome more Congolese refugees? Why not open your arms wider to Africans who are already on the continent and desperate for safety? This is where the cracks start to show. Because behind the moral language is a complex web of strategy, reputation, yes, and statecraft.
I think one thing that Kigali has really mastered is to address or find ways of addressing the anxiety of Western countries. So at this particular moment, Kigali is under pressure than never before regarding its support for members of M23 inside the DRC. So I think because of that pressure, Kigali feels like this very mercantilist, scratch my back, I'll scratch your back deal that is the approach of the US government now under the current administration sits well with that. Furthermore, it will make it easy now for the Rwanda DRC agreement and the Rwanda M23 agreement, which is the proxy for the Rwandese government, whereas Rwandese government rejects those allegations.
Let's not forget, Rwanda and the DRC just signed a U.S. brokered ceasefire deal this past June. It was a fragile but highly symbolic agreement aimed at ending decades of violence and suspicion. So here's a question worth asking. Was this US-Rwanda deportation deal part of a broader negotiation? A geopolitical exchange where the US says, you help us solve our migrant problem, we'll help you cool tensions with your neighbors. If that sounds far-fetched, look a little closer at the pattern here. Rwanda positions itself as a responsible, stable actor. The U.S. gets a diplomatic win at home. Migrants gone, allies helping. Meanwhile, Rwanda gains leverage, aid, visibility, and perhaps a little more room to maneuver in the region. It's diplomacy, but it's also a transaction. So while Rwanda may genuinely want to help migrants, we have to ask, which migrants? From where? And for what price? Because compassion is powerful, but when it's only extended to those with Western passports, foreign money, or strategic value, it starts to look a lot less like compassion and a lot more like calculation.
Okay, so the migrants that are proposed to be moved from the US to Rwanda, they are somewhat of a pawn in this deal that the US has been brokering between Rwanda and about the conflict in Eastern Congo.
Yes, it is, precisely. I think Rwanda knows that the United States, especially this administration, has made deportation or denying of migrants, refugees, and asylees as its top priority.
Look, I'm all about partnerships, okay? Africa needs alliances. We need leverage. But let's be honest, not every deal is worth taking, especially when it imports problems without a plan. Because here's the real danger with this US-Rwanda deportation deal. You're bringing in people by force, not choice, into a country that they have no connection to, no roots, no family, no cultural context, no understanding of the language, the systems, the norms. And let's be clear, displacement is already traumatic. Now imagine being uprooted from one country only to be dropped into another that you know nothing about and that you didn't ask for. Even if Rwanda provides housing and training, that's just the start. What happens when those 250 migrants step out of those facilities and try to integrate into Rwandan society? Will they be accepted by locals? Will they be seen as outsiders, as burdens, as security risks? Because let's not pretend this is easy. Tensions between local populations, even migrants, are real, even within Africa. We've seen it in South Africa. We've seen it in Kenya, in Libya, in Tunisia, even in Ghana. When jobs are scarce, when housing is tight, and when governments are already under pressure, migrants, especially those seen as foreign, often become easy targets. And let's not forget, these are not economic migrants looking for work. These are people forcibly deported, some potentially with criminal records, yes, others wrongly swept up in Trump's dragnet policies. Their stories are complex. Their trauma is deep. And now they're being inserted into an entirely new society with little preparation on either side. That's a recipe for resentment, misunderstanding, and marginalization. So we have to ask, is Rwanda truly prepared to support these individuals beyond the press release? Is the community ready to absorb people who may never have set foot in Africa? And is anyone thinking long term about the human cost of forced relocation? Because Compassion is not just about taking people in. It's about giving them a place to belong. And right now, it's unclear if Rwanda is offering sanctuary or just storage. Here's the truth. Africa didn't cause the world's migration crisis, but somehow the continent is being asked to solve it. Not for our own people, not for our own neighbors, but for powerful nations who want to deport their problems and outsource the fallout. And the irony? We haven't even solved our own. From Sudan to South Sudan, from the DRC to Cameroon, from Somalia to Nigeria, millions of Africans are on the move, fleeing conflict, climate disaster, poverty, or political persecution. And yet, instead of creating a Pan-African migration framework, a system designed by Africans for Africans, we're signing deals to house deportees from countries that barely respect our sovereignty. My people, this is just the beginning. Make no mistake, we will see more migrants being offloaded into Africa. Trump has already approached Nigeria to take in deportees. And to their credit, Nigeria said, no, we have problems of our own, quote. But not every country will say no. And that's the concern. Because if this becomes the playbook, powerful nations exporting their migrant problem to the continent, then Africa must wake up and fast. This will escalate. We must hold our leaders accountable. We must demand that they think deeply, not just about aid money or diplomatic favors, but about the long-term social, legal, and moral impact of these decisions. Every agreement made in secret will become a crisis felt in public. So the question is, what kind of Africa are we building? One that reacts or one that leads? Because Africa doesn't need to be anyone's dumping ground. We are not a storage facility for the rejected. We are a continent of movement, of resilience, of second chances. But those second chances must start here with our own people, our own borders, and our own bold vision for what migration can look like when it's driven by justice, not desperation. As Nigeria rightfully said, we've got problems of our own. Now I turn it over to you. What do you think about Rwanda and other African nations accepting migrants from the U.S.? Drop your thoughts and let's talk about it together. That's it for today's show. Thanks for watching. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. I'm Sandra Babu-Boateng, and until next time, take care.